So let's talk about gardening in the wintertime. Since we're slowing down and everybody's started putting things to bed and cleaning up, now's a good time to really step back and think about, okay, what changes do I need? And just start assessing things. Of course, you're going to be doing the regular winter and fall things. Like I said, just take a few minutes or even a little while and think about what things need to change. And things may be great. You may not need to have to do anything, but you never know. So my recommendation is take the time, since we're slowing down, sketch out your areas. You might take a piece of graph paper, or even notebook paper, sketch out the surrounding area with the house, any outbuildings, hardscaped areas, utility lines, garden and landscape beds, and any individual trees and shrubs. And this will give you a basis for figuring out, okay, if things need to be removed, if things need to be added, if things aren't performing well enough. And so this will just give you a basis for, okay, everything's on paper. I know where everything is. What things do I need to start evaluating? And the one thing I always really talk to gardeners about is your focus of your landscape changes as your landscape ages. And so I always like to talk about this because a landscape has about 15 years until it needs to really have major changes. So when we first begin and we put a new landscape in, you're adding to. So that might be where you're at. And so you might look at things you need to add, focus on what's working, what changes need to occur, and what plant or hardscaping needs to be added. I know when I started my landscape, the first year was planting trees. The second year we came in with shrubs and perennials. And then the third year we started working on hardscaping. Now, not everybody's going to be that way, but that might give you an idea of how you need to be assessing, especially if you have a new landscape. Now, if your landscape's been in for about 5 or 6 years, or even more than that, your landscape starts aging. And so then you need to start thinking about the pruning and if you need to replace something, just the general upkeep. So, I know that when we were year 6 to 8 on my landscape, we started getting overgrowth and we started getting suckering and we started seeing a lot of broken branches. So this is the time to go in and start making corrective changes and making a game plan. And then, of course, once your landscape gets to about 10 to 15 years, you might start seeing major issues start to happen. So you may have put a tree in the wrong place and it starts to buckle a sidewalk, or you might have put something too close to the house and you've had a bad case of spider mites, or the tree is pushing on the eaves. So you want to start looking at those major issues that start to happen. You might need to focus on crowding or overgrowth. And sometimes, I'm at year, I think 18, and on my landscape, and I have decided we just need to pull a bunch of stuff. Those shrubs and trees have gotten way too big in certain areas and they just need to come out. And so then we start all over with that new landscape. And so, take a look at what your landscape has to offer, what things need to change. And you might ask yourself these questions: what's worked, what didn't work, what needs to be moved, what needs to be added or eliminated, and how have plants performed? Not all plants will perform the same in every environment. And so I know that I have a couple of wet spots in my yard. And so there are things that have performed really well for my friends and fellow gardeners, but they haven't been right for mine. So it's time to pull them out or change the variety or species. Have you had pest issues? What can you do to alter the predictability of those pest issues in the future? Change the type of plant, start on a spray schedule, things like that. Did the landscape serve your needs? Think about your lifestyle. Kids leaving home for college, or you have new babies or new grandchildren. You've added a bunch of new people to your family through various ways in the last several years. Think about those lifestyle changes that might affect the way your property can serve you. Review the light around your property because that can change with tree growth, tree removal. Think about the soil. Have you had a soil test taken lately? So think about that. Water, I know a lot of people have started adding more water lines and hydrants. Do you have enough? Do you have enough hose to make it to all those different places? And think about those microclimates that might exist within your property. Was there enough space to grow enough food? I know that with the pandemic and people staying home more and grocery prices climbing, there we have a lot of gardeners that are looking at increasing the size of their gardens or changing the way they garden. And so think about that. Do you have enough space for feeding your family? And of course, think about, do you want to increase your garden or landscape area? Or on the other end, do you want to reduce it? Because I know that I have a lot of friends that say, well, I've bitten off more than I can chew. I'm just going to have to scale back a little more. Or you may change your focus. Instead of, gardening in the ground, you might consider gardening in raised beds or even doing hydroponics. I know that's been a big trend we're seeing lately. Hydroponics, microgreens. So those might be some alternative gardening methods that you might look into. And then, of course, we hear a lot of people going, well, I wish I had done this or that with my walls and my walkways. So start taking a look at those and see if they need to change. Are walls still horizontal where they need to be horizontal or vertically, straight? And so think about that, because as these blocks age and the ground settles, we start getting a tip here or an unlevel here, and have your pavers started sinking, because a lot of times that settling causes them to sink. Running over them with a UTV or a lawnmower can cause them to sink. So they may have to be leveled and readjusted. Our pathways holding up to the wear and tear of traveling feet. And I like to bring this one up because there are a lot of people that do different things for pathways, grass pathways, mulch pathways, gravel pathways. And so the more you walk on them, the more things settle or break down. And so think about that. It may be time for a load of mulch to come in. And is there areas that need pathways? And I know I have in my yard, I definitely need a pathway from the house to the greenhouse, because every morning I'm making that same path across the lawn. And so I am wearing a path in the grass. And I know my husband gets a little upset at me sometimes. Take a different path, he says. Well, no, that's the straightest, most direct path. So I need a pathway. And so these are just some of the things that you need to start looking at. Remember that your landscape is constantly evolving. Things are constantly growing, dying, insect infestation, reseeding. You might think about this. Echinacea is a good example. You plant one and it goes a little crazy. It goes everywhere. And so just keep that in mind. There's always some maintenance that you can be doing at all times of the year, even in the winter.